There are moments in your career when leaving becomes the most honest decision you can make, not because you are careless or ungrateful, or because you want to escape responsibility. Sometimes, leaving is simply the next right step. You may have outgrown the role. You may have found a better opportunity. You may need a healthier environment, a different challenge, or a life that no longer fits inside the structure of your current job. But the way you leave matters. Many people prepare carefully to enter a job, but give very little thought to how they will leave one. They practice interviews, study the company, negotiate the offer, and arrive with attention. Then, when it is time to resign, they treat the exit like an emotional finish line. They hand in their notice, mentally disconnect, reduce their effort, avoid difficult conversations, and assume that because they are leaving, the final impression no longer matters. That is a mistake. Your resignation is not just the end of your employment. It becomes part of your professional reputation. It affects how managers remember you, how coworkers describe you, how future opportunities move through your network, and whether people feel comfortable recommending you when you are no longer in the room. The final weeks of a job can either confirm the respect you built over time or quietly weaken it. Professional resignation is not about pretending everything was perfect. It is not about staying silent when there were real problems. It is not about sacrificing your peace just to please people one last time. It is about leaving with discipline, clarity, and self-respect. It is about understanding that how you exit a room can be just as important as how you entered it. A careless resignation can create confusion. An emotional resignation can create unnecessary damage. A thoughtful resignation can create stability. It can protect relationships. It can help your team continue without avoidable chaos. It can show that even when you are moving on, your standards remain intact. In this audiobook, we will look at resignation as more than a letter, a meeting, or a 2-week notice. We will look at it as a professional transition. You will learn how to prepare before you resign, how to hand off your work clearly, how to manage the people around the transition, how to protect your reputation, and how to leave in a way that keeps your bridges intact. Because one day, someone may remember not only what you did while you were employed, but how you behaved when you no longer had to stay. Your exit is still part of your work, and if you handle it with care, it can become one of the strongest proofs of your professionalism. The modern exit mindset. Resigning from a job used to be treated as a simple administrative step. You gave notice, finished what you could, packed your things, and moved on. The company adjusted. The team replaced you. Life continued. In that older model, leaving was seen as a clean break. Once you handed in your resignation, your responsibilities slowly faded, and your attention shifted almost entirely to the next opportunity. But careers no longer work that way. People do not move through one company, one ladder, or one predictable professional path anymore. A coworker today may become a hiring manager 5 years from now. A supervisor you once reported to may later recommend you for a role you never saw coming. A teammate who quietly observed your habits may one day become a client, partner, founder, recruiter, or decision maker inside another organization. This is why leaving a job is not just a private career decision. It is a visible professional moment. It tells people how you handle endings. It shows whether your standards depend on convenience or character. It reveals whether your professionalism continues even when you are already halfway out the door. Many people think their reputation is built only during the years they perform well. Their results matter. Their reliability matters. Their ability to solve problems, support the team, and deliver under pressure all matter. But the final impression often carries unusual weight because it happens at a moment when people know your incentives have changed. You are leaving. You no longer need to earn the next performance review. You no longer need to compete for internal recognition. You no longer need to protect your place inside the company. That is exactly why your behavior during resignation becomes memorable. When you continue to act with care after you have already chosen to leave, people notice. When you still document your work, answer questions patiently, close loops, and speak respectfully, people remember that your professionalism was not just a performance for reward. It was a standard. The opposite is also true. When someone resigns and instantly disappears emotionally, the team feels the gap before the person is even gone. Messages go unanswered. Projects become unclear. Files are scattered. Colleagues begin discovering hidden dependencies. Managers realize too late that certain processes lived only in one person's head. What could have been a peaceful transition becomes a stressful recovery operation. This is where the modern exit mindset begins. You are not simply escaping a job. You are managing a transition. You are not only announcing that you are leaving. You are helping the people affected by your departure understand what needs to continue after you go. This does not mean you owe unlimited access, emotional labor, or unpaid loyalty after you resign. Professional resignation is not self-abandonment. It simply means you leave with enough clarity and order that your exit does not create unnecessary confusion. A mature resignation begins with how you think about the moment. If you see your resignation as revenge, you may be tempted to leave people struggling. If you see it as escape, you may rush through the process. But if you see it as a transition, you move differently. You become calmer. You become more deliberate. You ask what needs to be transferred, clarified, documented, closed, or communicated. You treat your exit as the final piece of the work, not as an interruption from it. The job may be ending, but your name continues. The role may be finished, but your reputation keeps traveling. And the way you leave may speak longer than you expect. Prepare before you say the words. A professional resignation does not begin when you say, "I'm leaving." It begins before that conversation ever happens. It begins in the quiet preparation you do while you are still responsible for your role, your projects, and the people who depend on your work. Many people resign from emotion. They reach a breaking point, send the message, schedule the meeting, and release the words before they have thought through what happens next. The relief may feel good for a moment, but the lack of preparation often creates confusion. Suddenly, the manager needs answers. The team needs context. Projects need ownership. Deadlines need adjustment. Files need to be found. Processes need to be explained. Before you resign, take a clear look at your work. Not just the visible tasks everyone knows about, but the quiet responsibilities that have slowly become part of your routine. These are often the things that cause problems after someone leaves. The weekly report only you know how to prepare. The spreadsheet with formulas no one else understands. The client preference that was never written down. The recurring issue you quietly fix every month before anyone notices. The internal contact who helps you move something forward faster than the official process. These silent responsibilities matter because they are part of the real job, even if they were never part of the job description. When they remain locked inside your memory, the team does not realize how much invisible structure you are providing until it disappears. A thoughtful resignation brings those hidden pieces into the open. Start by asking yourself what someone would need to know if they had to continue your work tomorrow. Think about your active projects, your regular deadlines, your internal systems, your important documents, your key contacts, your unfinished decisions, and the small warnings that would help someone avoid common mistakes. This is not about writing a perfect manual for your entire position. It is about reducing unnecessary confusion for the people who will inherit your responsibilities. Preparation also gives you emotional control. When you know what needs to be transferred, you enter the resignation conversation with more calm. You are not simply saying, "I'm leaving." You are saying, in effect, "I'm leaving, and I have thought carefully about how to make this transition easier." That tone changes the room. It shows maturity. It shows respect. It helps your manager see you not as someone abandoning the team, but as someone making a professional move while still honoring the work. This does not mean you need to solve every problem before you go. You are not responsible for replacing yourself completely. You are not responsible for fixing years of poor documentation, broken processes, or management gaps in your final days. But you can create enough clarity that people are not forced to rebuild everything from memory. There is a quiet confidence that comes from preparing well. You do not need to over-explain. You do not need to apologize for growing. You do not need to carry guilt for choosing a new direction. Preparation allows you to leave with steadiness because you know you are not acting carelessly. Before you say the words, organize what matters. Know what must be handed off. Know what is urgent, what can wait, and what needs explanation. When the resignation conversation arrives, you will not sound like someone running away. You will sound like someone closing one chapter with care before beginning the next. Build the handoff before you leave. One of the clearest signs of a professional resignation is the quality of the handoff. A resignation letter may announce your decision, but the handoff reveals your character. It shows whether you understand that your work does not vanish just because your employment is ending. The tasks continue. The deadlines continue. The people depending on the work continue. The only thing changing is that you will no longer be the person holding everything together. A strong handoff begins with one simple question. What would someone need to know if they had to step into my responsibilities without me beside them? That question changes the way you look at your role. You stop thinking only about what you do, and you begin thinking about what others need to understand. You notice the routines that feel automatic to you but would be confusing to someone else. You notice the shortcuts you use, the people you contact, the timing of certain tasks, the small risks you watch for, and the decisions you make quietly because experience has taught you what usually happens next. This is why documentation matters. Not complicated documentation. Not a perfect corporate manual. Just clear, useful guidance that helps another person continue without wasting days trying to decode your system. A good handoff explains what is active, what is pending, where important files are kept, who needs to be contacted, what deadlines are approaching, and what details should not be missed. Think of the handoff as a bridge between your final day and the team's next stable rhythm. If you leave nothing behind, people are forced to guess. They search through old messages, open random folders, ask multiple coworkers, and try to reconstruct decisions from scattered pieces. That creates frustration, and sometimes that frustration becomes attached to your name. But when you leave behind clarity, you reduce the emotional weight of your departure. People may still miss your contribution, but they are not left feeling abandoned by your process. A helpful handoff also includes the invisible parts of the job. Maybe there is a report that must be checked twice because one data source often updates late. Maybe there is a client who prefers direct confirmation before a meeting. Maybe there is an approval chain that works better when one person is informed early. Maybe there is a recurring task that seems simple but creates problems when done in the wrong order. These details may feel small, but they often prevent confusion. The goal is not to impress people with how much only you knew. The goal is to make the work easier to continue. A poor handoff says, "Good luck figuring it out." A thoughtful handoff says, "Here is what I learned, so you do not have to start from zero." If there is someone taking over your work, walk them through the most important areas while you are still available. Explain not only what to do, but why it matters. Show where judgment is needed. Point out what usually causes delays. Give context for decisions that might otherwise look random. This kind of preparation protects your reputation because it changes the memory of your exit. People do not simply remember that you left. They remember whether you made the leaving harder or easier. They remember whether you disappeared into silence or helped create order. You do not have to carry the company on your back. You do not have to make yourself available forever. But during the transition, you can leave behind enough structure that your absence does not become unnecessary chaos. Thank you for reaching this far. If you enjoy how-to audiobooks, practical guides, and life-changing advice, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It helps the algorithm bring this kind of content to more people who need it. Beeventa Audio is here to be your life's companion in learning, growth, and everyday transformation. Keep the team stable while you transition. When someone resigns, the work is not the only thing that shifts. The emotional atmosphere shifts too. People begin wondering what will happen next. A manager may worry about coverage. Co-workers may worry about extra workload. Direct reports may wonder if their routines, priorities, or sense of support will suddenly change. Even when everyone responds politely, a resignation creates movement inside the team. The question is whether that movement becomes calm adjustment or unnecessary instability. This is why a professional exit requires more than documentation. It also requires emotional steadiness. You are not responsible for managing everyone's feelings, but you are responsible for not adding confusion, negativity, or drama to a moment that already carries uncertainty. The way you speak during your final days can either settle the room or disturb it. One common mistake people make after resigning is treating their departure as permission to unload everything they have been holding back. They complain more freely. They become careless with comments. They share frustrations with people who cannot do anything useful with that information. For a moment, it may feel honest. It may even feel satisfying, but it rarely helps. More often, it leaves behind discomfort and damages the dignity of the exit. Professionalism does not require you to pretend your experience was perfect. It simply asks you to be thoughtful about where, when, and how you speak. If there are serious concerns, raise them in the proper setting, with calm language and useful context. Do not turn casual conversations into complaint sessions. Do not use your final days to recruit people into your frustration. Do not leave behind emotional debris that others have to carry after you are gone. If you manage people or work closely with others, your tone matters even more. Some people may feel disappointed. Others may feel uncertain. Some may quietly wonder if your leaving means they should start looking too. Your role is not to convince everyone to stay or to hide reality from them. Your role is to communicate with care. You can say that you are grateful for the work you shared. You can acknowledge the transition without dramatizing it. You can express confidence in the people staying behind. These small signals help people absorb change without panic. It is also important to avoid mentally leaving before your final day arrives. Many people slow down, detach, become harder to reach, or treat unfinished work as someone else's problem. But your final days still count. In some ways, they count more because they are easy to compare. People remember whether you finished with steadiness or faded into inconvenience. Maintaining your standards does not mean working as if nothing has changed. Your focus should shift toward closure, transfer, and stability. Finish what can reasonably be finished. Clarify what cannot. Communicate where things stand. Respond to important questions. Keep meetings purposeful. Stay respectful even when your mind is already moving toward the next part of your life. A clean transition also means handing off projects without leaving hidden messes behind. If something is delayed, say so. If a task has risks, explain them. If a decision is still pending, identify who needs to decide. If a project is not as complete as people assume, be honest before your last day. Your final days should create relief, not resentment. They should make people think, we will miss this person, but they handled the transition well. Leaving well means understanding that people are part of the handoff too. Not just documents, not just tasks, not just systems. People need context, reassurance, and professionalism. When you give them that, you leave behind more than completed work. You leave behind trust. Say what needs to be said with control. One of the hardest parts of resigning professionally is knowing what to say, what not to say, and how much truth the moment actually requires. Leaving a job often brings up feelings that have been building for months or even years. There may be frustration, disappointment, exhaustion, relief, or even resentment. By the time someone finally decides to resign, they may feel tempted to say everything they never said before. But the resignation moment is not the place to release every emotion you have carried. That does not mean you must lie, act grateful for things that hurt you, or pretend that every part of your experience was positive. It means you need to understand the difference between honesty and emotional dumping. Honesty has direction, while emotional dumping simply releases pressure. Honesty can create understanding, while emotional dumping usually creates defensiveness, awkwardness, and damage that follows you longer than the feeling itself. When you speak to your manager, keep your message clear and calm. You can express appreciation for the opportunity, state that you have decided to move on, and confirm your commitment to helping with the transition. You do not need to over-explain your decision, defend your future plans, or turn your resignation into a long argument about everything that led you there. A clean message often sounds more professional because it shows that you have already thought carefully before speaking. If your company offers an exit interview, treat it carefully. Some people use exit interviews as a final chance to vent because they believe there are no consequences left. But there are almost always consequences, even if they are quiet. The person listening may not have the power to change the problems you mention. Your words may be summarized, interpreted, shared, or remembered in ways you cannot control. What feels like relief in the moment may become the final impression attached to your name. A graceful exit interview focuses on useful feedback, not personal punishment. If you choose to raise concerns, speak in terms of patterns, clarity, processes, workload, communication, or support. Avoid insults, exaggeration, and unnecessary personal attacks. Avoid naming people unless there is a serious reason to do so. The goal is not to win a case on your way out. The goal is to leave behind feedback that sounds mature enough to be taken seriously. There is also wisdom in knowing when silence is the stronger choice. Not every frustration deserves a final statement, and not every disappointment needs to be documented. Not every person needs to understand your full reason for leaving. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is exit with composure and let your next chapter speak for itself. Silence, when chosen with maturity, can protect your peace without damaging your reputation. This is especially important with coworkers. People may ask where you are going, why you are leaving, whether something happened, or whether they should be worried. Keep your answers steady. You can be warm without being careless, and you can be honest without being dramatic. You can say that it was time for a new opportunity, that you are grateful for the people you work with, and that you are focused on making the transition smooth. Your words during resignation create emotional weather around your exit. If you speak with bitterness, people feel the storm. If you speak with steadiness, people feel the stability. That stability becomes part of the memory you leave behind, especially when people later discuss how you handled your final days. Resigning professionally is not about hiding your truth. It is about handling your truth with discipline. The goal is to leave in a way that does not require you to repair your reputation later. Before you speak, ask yourself whether your words will still feel wise 3 months from now. Ask whether they protect your future self, not just your current emotion. Once you resign, people may forget many details about your role, but they will remember how you made them feel in the final conversations. Protect the bridge after you leave. A professional resignation does not end the moment you walk out, close your laptop, return your access card, or send your final message. The formal employment may end there, but the relationship does not always disappear. People remember how you left. They remember whether the transition felt respectful or difficult. They remember whether your final days created calm or confusion. In many careers, those memories become part of the quiet reputation that follows you into future rooms. This is why protecting the bridge matters. A bridge does not mean you plan to return. It does not mean you want to keep every relationship close. It does not mean you owe your former company unlimited availability after your last day. A professional bridge simply means you leave the connection in a condition that does not need to be repaired later. You make it possible for people to speak of you with respect, contact you without discomfort, and remember your exit as mature. One way to protect that bridge is to be thoughtful about your final communication. A short note of appreciation can do more than people realize, especially when it is specific and sincere. You do not need to write a dramatic farewell message or make your departure feel larger than it is. You can simply thank the people who helped you, acknowledge what you learned, and express goodwill toward the team. The purpose is not to flatter everyone. The purpose is to leave a clean emotional ending. If there are people you work with closely, consider reaching out privately before you leave. A brief message to a manager, teammate, mentor, direct report, or collaborator can preserve a relationship that might otherwise fade awkwardly. You can thank them for their support, mention something you appreciated about working with them, and offer a simple way to stay connected. These small gestures do not take much time, but they can carry weight because they show that you saw the relationship as more than a transaction. It is also wise to make your future contact boundaries clear. Some people promise too much when they leave because they feel guilty. They say, "Reach out anytime," even when they do not mean it. They create an expectation they may later resent. A better approach is honest and contained. You can say that you are happy to answer genuine transition questions for a short period if something urgent comes up, while making it clear that the team now owns the work moving forward. That kind of boundary is professional because it is helpful without becoming open-ended. Protecting the bridge also means protecting your tone after you leave. It can be tempting to speak freely once you are outside the company. You may feel safer telling stories, sharing frustrations, or criticizing the people and systems you left behind. But your words still travel. Even casual comments can return in distorted form. A mature exit continues after the resignation because reputation does not stop at the door. Speak about the past with enough restraint that you do not make your future self uncomfortable. This does not mean you must pretend everything was wonderful. It means you choose language that keeps your dignity intact. You can say that it was time for a change. You can say that you learned a lot and were ready for a new direction. You can acknowledge that every workplace has challenges without turning your old workplace into a public target. The more controlled your language is, the more powerful your professionalism becomes. A strong bridge also includes staying connected in simple, natural ways. You do not need to force relationships or maintain contact with everyone. But if there are people you genuinely value, connect with them before the trail goes cold. A former colleague can become a future reference, partner, client, advisor, or friend. More importantly, they can become someone who remembers that you handled your ending with grace. The final impression you leave is not built by one grand gesture. It is built by small decisions made consistently during the transition. You document what matters. You communicate calmly. You thank people sincerely. You set boundaries honestly. You avoid unnecessary bitterness. You make it easier for others to continue without you, and you leave behind a version of yourself that people can respect. That is reputation equity. It is the value created when people trust your name even after your role is over. You may not see the benefit immediately. You may not know who will remember, who will recommend you, or who will quietly speak well of you later. But professional bridges often matter most when you least expect them. The career world is larger than one job, but smaller than most people think. If you've made it to this point, you're clearly committed to your own growth. Support this journey by liking, sharing, and subscribing. It signals to the algorithm that thoughtful guides and meaningful advice matter. Beeventa Audio will continue walking with you, offering how-to insights, practical wisdom, and a companion for every chapter of your personal and professional life. Leave like someone people would hire again. The strongest professional exits are remembered for their calmness. Not because everything was easy, and not because there were no frustrations, but because the person leaving understood the weight of the moment. They did not treat resignation as a chance to disappear. They treated it as a final opportunity to show judgment, discipline, and respect. They left in a way that made people comfortable saying their name again. That is the standard to aim for. Leave like someone people would hire again, recommend again, work with again, and trust again. This does not mean you need to be perfect in your final days. It means you need to be intentional. You need to understand that the final version of you people see inside that workplace may become the version they remember most clearly. A strong exit does not require dramatic gestures. It is usually built through simple actions done well. You communicate clearly. You finish what can reasonably be finished. You explain what cannot be completed. You leave your files organized. You document the work that matters. You avoid turning frustration into public commentary. You thank the right people. You close conversations with maturity. You make your final days feel stable instead of chaotic. There is quiet power in that kind of ending. It tells people that your professionalism did not depend on being watched. It tells them that your respect did not disappear when your plans changed. It tells them that even when you were ready to move forward, you still cared enough to leave the work in better condition than it could have been. This is especially important because people do not always talk about your entire performance history. They often talk about what is easiest to remember. If your exit created stress, that stress may become part of your story. If your exit created clarity, that clarity may become part of your story too. The final impression is not always fair, but it is often powerful. Before your last day, think carefully about what remains unfinished. If there are open projects, make their status clear. If there are decisions waiting for approval, identify who owns them now. If there are risks, mention them early. If there are files people will need, organize them in a place they can actually find. If there are recurring tasks, explain the rhythm behind them. The goal is not to make yourself irreplaceable on the way out. The goal is to prove that your presence had value and your departure had integrity. There is also value in ending with humility. You may be excited about your next step, but the people staying behind still have to continue the work. You may feel relieved, but others may feel pressure. You may be ready to leave, but your exit still creates adjustment for the team. A mature professional understands this without carrying guilt. You can be happy about moving forward while still being considerate toward the people affected by your move. On your final day, keep your words simple and steady. Express appreciation where it is genuine. Avoid unnecessary speeches. Avoid reopening old wounds. Avoid making promises you cannot keep. If you choose to leave a short note, let it be warm, clear, and professional. Thank people for the work shared, wish them well, and leave the door open only in a way that feels honest and sustainable. The art of ethical quitting is not about staying longer than you should. It is about leaving better than you could have. It is about recognizing that endings are not empty spaces. They are moments of evidence. They show how you handle change, discomfort, opportunity, and responsibility all at once. When you leave well, you do more than protect your reputation. You protect your own self-respect. You walk into the next chapter without needing to rewrite the last one. You know that you did not let frustration make the final decision for you. You know that you did not create avoidable damage just because you were ready to go. You know that your exit matched the professional you are still becoming. And that is the kind of ending that becomes a bridge. Every career has moments of arrival, and every career has moments of departure. The arrival is often celebrated, but the departure is often underestimated. Yet the way you leave can reveal just as much about you as the way you began. It shows whether you can handle change without creating damage, whether you can protect your future without disrespecting your past, and whether you can move forward without leaving unnecessary disorder behind you. A professional resignation is not a performance of loyalty to a company you are leaving. It is a commitment to the person you are becoming. It is the decision to close a door without slamming it, to finish a season without poisoning it, and to step into what comes next with your reputation, your dignity, and your peace still intact. Thank you for spending this time learning and growing. If you value how-to insights, practical guides, and meaningful advice, remember to like, share, and subscribe. Beeventa Audio is here to be your life's companion in clarity, growth, and everyday transformation.